Keanu Reeves was heading home in his prized car, the world feeling perfectly ordinary, until it wasn't. In a matter of moments, everything unraveled. No one could have foreseen that, just minutes later, he'd be fighting for his life. Not against villains, but against the very people sworn to protect. Not for justice, but for survival. What unfolded next would leave anyone stunned. Don't miss this gripping tale. Watch until the end, and if it resonates, subscribe and share where you're watching from. The road was empty, wrapped in the kind of golden hush only a fading day can offer. Pine trees arched overhead, their shadows stretching across the battered two-lane road. The only sound was the deep, steady rumble of a classic 1969 Mustang, its engine a low, contented growl. Behind the wheel sat a man the world would know anywhere, but not here and not now. Keanu Reeves wore a plain gray tee beneath a worn denim jacket. His beard a bit wild, hair tucked under a trucker's cap. Dust clung to his jeans, his boots spattered. He looked more like a wanderer than a Hollywood icon. That was intentional. He'd spent a week alone in the forest. No cameras, no scripts, no late-night calls for rewrites. Just birds, cold streams, and quiet. He needed it. The industry could erase you with applause. The more they cheered, the more you vanished into the roles they demanded. But here, with the sun sinking low, he felt real again. He tapped the wheel, humming a tune that sounded like Nina Simone. The Mustang had no Bluetooth, no touchscreen. Just dials, vinyl seats, and a stubborn cassette deck stuck on Ain't No Sunshine for days. A curve loomed. He eased into it, letting the engine purr. Then headlights. A black sedan shot past in the opposite lane, swerving sharply and cutting him off. Its bumper nearly grazed his hood. He slammed the brakes, tires shrieking. His coffee tumbled, landing upside down. His heart hammered. Easy, he muttered more to himself than anyone. The black car didn't slow, weaving between lanes before vanishing around the bend. Keanu clenched his jaw, wiped his hand on his jeans, and flashed his headlights. A reflex, a warning, not a challenge. But within seconds, the black car braked hard, skidding to a stop. Dust billowed. Keanu stopped a safe distance back, the Mustang's engine rumbling, sensing the tension. Two men got out, both in black boots, dark jeans, tactical jackets. One wore a badge on a chain. The other cracked his knuckles, eyes hard. Keanu stayed put, hands on the wheel, face calm. He had no idea that in 5 minutes, he'd be on the ground, bloodied. No idea this quiet road would make global headlines. No idea that just being himself, quiet, calm, different, was enough to make him a target. Not because he was Keanu Reeves, but because to them he didn't look like he mattered. Not yet. The taller officer was halfway to the Mustang, boots crunching gravel. The other followed, hand near his belt, fingers brushing his baton. Their posture was loud, aggressive, territorial. Keanu rolled down the window halfway, left hand on the wheel, right hand resting on the door. He didn't reach for his wallet. He didn't move. "Evening, officers," he said, voice steady. "Is there a problem?" They didn't answer. The taller one stepped up, jaw tight, nostrils flaring. "You flashing your lights at us. I thought your car was swerving," Keanu replied, calm. "Just wanted to make sure you were okay." The second officer barked a short, cold laugh. "Cute." Silence followed, the kind that crawls under your skin. "What's your name?" the first demanded. "Keanu," he answered. The two exchanged a look, then a smirk. "Oh, you're Keanu, huh?" The taller one leaned in, searching his face for a lie. "That's supposed to be funny." Keanu didn't flinch. No joke, but they weren't listening. "License and registration," the second snapped. "They're in the glove box," Keanu said, moving slowly. "Don't move," the taller one barked, hand flying to his holster. Keanu froze, hand in midair. Glove box, that's all. The air was thick, suffocating. Something in the officer's eyes changed. This wasn't about protocol anymore. It was about control. "Step out of the car," the second ordered. Keanu hesitated, confused. Why? The taller officer yanked the door open. Because I said so. Keanu stepped out, hands visible, standing tall but relaxed. Neither submissive nor threatening. The officers circled him like wolves. One nudged his boot. "Where you headed?" the shorter asked. "Home," Keanu replied. "Where's that?" "A cardboard box under a bridge," he joked. The taller one laughed, stepping closer. "You know your problem. It to come. Like you think you're better than us." Keanu met his gaze. "No, I just don't want trouble." "Too late for that," the officer growled, shoving him hard. Keanu stumbled, catching himself on the Mustang. Before he could speak, a fist crashed into his jaw. Pain exploded. He tasted blood. The world spun. Another blow. A boot to his ribs. Keanu collapsed, stars bursting in his vision. The air reeked of gasoline, sweat, and something darker. "You think you're someone. You're nobody," a voice spat. Keanu struggled to breathe, still not fighting back, still trying to speak. He realized something chilling. They didn't recognize him, and worse, they didn't care. The gravel bit into his cheek as he lay still, struggling to focus. He didn't beg. His ribs screamed with every breath. His right arm twisted beneath him, throbbing. He wasn't sure if it was broken, but something was wrong. Heavy boots circled him. Fingers grabbed his collar, yanking him upright. His legs buckled, but the officer didn't care, slamming him against the Mustang. "You want to play hero," the officer sneered. Keanu tried to answer, but a fist slammed into his gut, knocking the wind out. He collapsed, coughing, head spinning. The other officer paced nearby, a shark circling. "You know what I hate? Guys who mouth off, then play victim." Keanu's voice was hoarse, barely audible. "I haven't said anything." The officer crouched, grabbing his hair, jerking his head up. "Exactly. You think silence makes you innocent." He let go, Keanu's head dropping. Then a shift colder. "You know what really teaches a lesson." Keanu heard a flick. Metal flame. He turned, vision blurry, just enough to see the officer holding a lighter. A cheap gas can appeared from their trunk. The taller one smirked. "Nice car. Classic. You must have worked hard for this." Keanu said nothing. "You'll remember this," the officer added. "Every time you hear an engine, you'll remember not to mess with authority." Gas sloshed over the hood, into the windshield seams, soaking the seats. Keanu's heart pounded. Not just from fear, but disbelief. This wasn't just violence. It was a show. One man stepped back, tossed the lighter. Flash, a whoosh of heat. The Mustang erupted in flames. Fire racing along its body, devouring paint and chrome. Keanu turned away, shielding his good arm from the heat. Even from a distance, the fire licked at his skin. The car he'd rebuilt piece by piece was gone in seconds. "You're lucky we don't light you up too," one muttered. The other laughed. "Thanks for the cash." Keanu barely noticed when they took his wallet. He was still staring at the blaze, jaw clenched, chest heaving. When the cruiser finally left, its taillight swallowed by trees, Keanu was alone, beaten, broken. For a long moment he didn't move. Then, with trembling fingers and blood on his lips, he pushed himself upright. Each breath was agony, his ribs on fire. He said nothing, but his eyes burned brighter than the flames. The road was darker now, not just from the setting sun, but because Keanu's world had shrunk to pain, breath, and the need to keep moving. He walked, slow, uneven, one arm cradled, the other swinging for balance. His boots were gone, taken during the assault. His socks were soaked in blood and dust. Every step hurt. Every breath scraped his lungs. But he walked. No phone, no wallet, no car. Only the weight of what had happened, and the knowledge that if he stopped, he might never move again. The wind stirred the pines, cool against his battered skin. The smell of smoke clung to him. The scent of his Mustang burning etched into memory. It wasn't just a car. It was his, untouched by Hollywood, rebuilt by his own hands, his escape. He stumbled, tripped on a root, dropped to one knee. Gravel tore his skin. The stars spun above. Part of him wanted to stay down, but he didn't. He pressed his good hand to the pavement, forced himself up, gritting his teeth until he tasted blood. One step, then another, and another. Hours passed before the trees thinned. A distant glow appeared, the first lights of a sleeping town. Gas station, diner, a sheriff's office at the edge of Main Street. Keanu kept to the shadows, not out of fear but instinct. He passed the Welcome to Bristol County sign, barely visible in the moonlight. The first time he'd come here 5 years ago was to film a scene. Locals had welcomed him, invited him to barbecues, praised his humility. Now he looked like a homeless man who'd crawled from hell. Blood crusted on his face, jacket torn, hands shaking. He crossed the lot to the police station, pausing at the door, barely recognizing his reflection. Then, with all the strength he had left, he pushed inside. 2 officers at the desk looked up, stunned. Silence. One stood, eyes wide. "Wait, is that?" Keanu's voice was low but clear. "I need help," he said, "and I need you to pull up the highway cameras." They stared, speechless. He added, "I think I was just left for dead by 2 of your own. Are you still here? If you're still watching and you believe in acts of kindness, comment yes below. We read every reply and want to know who believes kindness still matters." The camera footage loaded slowly, a spinning circle on the monitor. Keanu sat motionless, cradling his arm. A paramedic offered to take him to the hospital, but he refused. Not yet. Not until the truth was seen. 2 officers stood nearby, stiff with disbelief and dread. The footage finally played. On the Mustang's dash cam, the screen showed it all. The black sedan nearly hitting him. His single flash of headlights, the car swerving to block him, the officers approaching, then the violence. No edits, no shaky phone footage. Just raw brutality. The room watched as 2 officers dragged a man from his car, punched him, kicked him, twisted his arm until he screamed. One officer near the monitor clenched his jaw. Jesus. Then the worst part. They doused the Mustang, set it ablaze, and walked away laughing. The room was silent. Keanu didn't flinch, eyes fixed on the screen, jaw set, breathing shallow. When it ended, no one spoke. Only the faint hiss of the monitor filled the air. Finally, the shift supervisor, Dawson, turned to Keanu, voice hoarse. "That was Officer Mitchell and Officer Renner, county troopers. You sure you want to press charges?" Keanu's answer was steady, quiet, but absolute. "I'm not pressing charges." Confused looks. "I'm pressing the record." He pulled a flash drive from his jacket, the backup from his car's secondary camera. "This one's clearer. Faces, badge numbers, timestamps." Dawson took it, hand shaking. "Get your internal affairs chief," Keanu said. "Now." By sunrise, state investigators had reviewed the footage. By noon it was online. By evening it was viral. #Justice for Keanu trended worldwide. Not because he was famous, but because the footage left no doubt. This wasn't about race or fame, or even just police misconduct. It was about something colder. Arrogance, indifference, the belief that a man could be erased without consequence. Interviews were requested, statements demanded. Keanu stayed silent, but the storm was coming. News anchors stared into cameras, shocked. Hollywood icon assaulted by officers in broad daylight. 2 troopers suspended after footage confirms beating of actor Keanu Reeves. Governor, "We will pursue this to the fullest extent of the law." Back at the precinct, Keanu stood in a room full of officers. Some looked ashamed, others furious. Not at him, but at what had been done in their name. Keanu broke the silence. "This isn't about me," he said. "It never was. This is about what happens when power forgets it serves the people." Then he stepped back, the weight of truth now on everyone else. Justice had just woken up. The forest was quiet again, except for the sharp commands over radios, the crunch of boots, and the sweep of flashlights. Keanu stood beside Dawson at the tree-line, wrapped in a patrol jacket, arm in a sling, ribs aching. He refused to sit. Confirmed visual. An officer's voice crackled. Suspects near the creek bed. No weapons. Awaiting orders. Dawson looked at Keanu. You don't have to be here. Keanu didn't blink. I do. Minutes later, the two men emerged, hands raised, flanked by armed officers. Their faces were pale, drained of arrogance. They weren't predators now, they were prey. When they saw Keanu, they stopped. Mitchell, the taller, stepped back, eyes flicking from Keanu's bruised face to the officers around them. Renner swallowed hard. We didn't know, he muttered. Keanu stared, face unreadable. No, he said quietly. You didn't care. Mitchell's voice cracked. It was a misunderstanding. Keanu raised an eyebrow. So was the fire. The forest held its breath. Dawson stepped forward. Cuff them. The two officers didn't resist. Their hands were pulled behind their backs, cuffs snapping shut with a finality that echoed through the trees. The moment the metal clicked, something shifted. A chapter closing. Mitchell turned to Keanu one last time. You don't have to ruin us. Keanu stepped forward, voice cutting through the night. I didn't ruin you, he said. You did that the moment you thought your badge made you untouchable. No more words. Only silence as the two men were led away. Boots dragging. Back at the station, the briefing room was packed. No cameras, no press. Just officers, state, county, city. Keanu entered with Dawson, body aching, mind clear. The disgraced officers stood at the front, hands bound, faces flushed with shame. They wouldn't meet anyone's eyes. Keanu spoke not to them but to the room. We're not defined by uniforms, he said. We're defined by what we do when no one's watching. They thought no one was. But now the world is. He turned to the two men. You are no longer officers. You never will be again. You'll face charges. You'll pay for my car. And more importantly, he leaned in, voice sharp, you'll live with the fact that the man you tried to erase made sure no one ever forgets your names. As he left, the room parted for him. Behind him, justice followed. 2 weeks later, the fire still burned. Not in the woods, but across the country. On screens, talk shows, in courtrooms. The footage sparked a reckoning. Departments nationwide reopened misconduct cases. Officers were suspended across state lines as people came forward. Empowered by Keanu's endurance and the public exposure, protesters marched, not chanting his name, but for the nameless who never got their stories seen. Keanu had barely spoken publicly, until now. The auditorium was packed. CNN, BBC, Al Jazeera. Every major outlet had a camera on the stage. He wasn't there to promote a film. He wore black jeans, a charcoal jacket, arm in a sling. He leaned into the mic. I'm not here as a celebrity, he began. Not as a movie star. Not as John Wick or Neo or whatever name you've given me. I'm here as a man who was left on the side of the road, beaten, robbed, and nearly burned alive for no reason other than looking like someone who didn't belong. A murmur rippled through the crowd. He continued, and I'm here because I survived. But the truth is, not everyone does. If I hadn't been famous, if I hadn't had cameras, if I hadn't made it out, this story would have ended differently, or never been told at all. The room was silent. I didn't go public because it happened to me. I went public because this happens to others every day. And no one listens. He pulled a folded paper from his jacket. This is the founding charter of the Silent No More initiative. Starting today, I'm funding a network to provide hidden dash cams, legal support, and mental health recovery for victims of police violence and profiling. No marketing, no red carpet, just results. Applause began. Steady building, not for a man, but a mission. He gave one last look across the crowd, then stepped away. No dramatic speech, no revenge fantasy. Just a quiet man who'd been left for dead, now at the center of a movement. That night, someone painted a mural near 5th and Main, Keanu limping down a road at dusk, his Mustang burning behind him, underneath in bold white. They tried to silence him. He made the silence impossible. From that day, the world didn't just remember the assault. They remembered the aftermath, and the man who turned pain into purpose. No one is immune to injustice. Not even Keanu Reeves. This wasn't a story about a movie star. It was about a system that only cared when it recognized the victim. And that's the problem. If justice only works when it knows your name, it's not justice at all. It wasn't about power. It was about permission. Those officers didn't act from